darlings, and welcome to another lovely episode of A Certain Age Living Out Loud. I am one of your hosts, Kodi Maurice Doggete, alongside my rock and my mental stability, Steve V. How you doing, Steve?
Doing really good. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. Well, a little later, we're going to be chatting with Miss Alicia Kiss. I keep calling her Alicia Keys.
I know it's a
Uh,
hard one.
but it's okay. They're both lovely and they're both giving us so much to think about in life. So we're chatting with Miss Alicia Kiss about mental health and wellness, the perfect juxtaposition to bodily health and fitness, which we talked about last episode with Alejandro Terrazas. So go ahead and check out episode 5 if you haven't. But today is all about keeping your mind healthy. And Steve, I want to ask you, how important is your mental health in this day and age and as we age?
It's very important. I was re-listening to when we talked to Alicia, and one of the things we talk about, we'll let everyone hear, but is trigger points and trigger points that can actually pop up throughout the day that can set you off or put you in, say, a bad mood or annoy you. And it's one of the things you'll hear me talk a little bit about the key to happiness, or at least what I think, and it's all about intention setting. When I don't intention set my day, I tend to be a little lost. And along with intention setting, whether it's connecting with those that I come in contact with throughout this particular day, whether it is, uh, you know, being grateful and thankful, whether it's scheduling, so I have a plan for my day, all those things keep me trigger free. And when, like, even a little thing that occurred this morning, I went to go take my vitamins, and one of the cap on the vitamin C pill flew off, and vitamin
Mm.
C pills were everywhere. I was on my
Oh,
hands and knees
no.
picking up all those pills. And, little things like that in the past would have set me off, and I would have been like cursing to my, in my apartment and all this. And I just took a deep breath and was like, nope, just get down and pick it up. I mean, I know that sounds like such a small example, but those are little things that can build up, I feel, and trigger your day and set your mood and your tone. And I'll just share one other example
Hmm.
of setting intentions of connecting with those I come in contact with. I've been away for about a month now, and when I just walked out my door to get a little bit of lunch, and from the door guys that are in my building to two people that work in the grocery store that were like, "Hi, Steve." This guy came up also that I've seen there, but it was the most friendliest hello. And I turned around, I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And I know him by name
Aw.
even. And then he's like a manager there. And then a guy that helps with the groceries there came over and fist bumped me, and we've become friendly before. And just those kind of connections really brighten my spirit and my day, and again set the tone. But I think in I put that intention out there,
Hmm.
and I reaped what I had already sown and put forth for my day.
I
How,
love that.
yeah, how about
That is
yourself?
Well, I just to piggyback off of what you said, today for me was a little bit stressful. I had to wake up earlier. I'm not a morning person at all.
Right.
I had to wake up earlier than normal. I'm not going to say because I don't want to be embarrassed in front of all these people that are listening to this podcast right
Let's just
now.
say you're not a morning person. How's that?
Exactly, and leave it at that. But I had to wake up a little bit earlier than normal, which is totally fine. It was expected. But what wasn't expected was the time where I had to be somewhere got moved forward. So I didn't get to do any of my morning ritual. And then I got on the train, and the train felt like it was taking ages,
Oof.
decades. It is so infuriating if you let yourself get into that mind space of letting it take you down a peg, basically. So
Yeah.
I had to physically and mentally center myself so that I would not be in a space where I would be upset for the rest of the day. So I totally get what you're saying about small things building up, because who cares if the train is a little bit delayed? Who cares that I had to be somewhere a little bit earlier than I thought that I had to be? It doesn't, it's not going to affect my life in the long run. And I think that the more that we realize it's more about the big picture, then it's going to be something that we can handle and manage a little bit better. That is why this episode is so important to me, because I feel like mental health is something that we kind of put on the back burner. And sometimes those little things that we do and say to to really take care of our mental health and make sure that we are mentally and well, we kind of don't take it, don't take them into account. What do you feel about mental health in this day and age, about as far as people making sure that they're taking care of themselves?
Yeah, we are in a particular, I would say, crazy from a global standpoint right now. One thought comes to mind. I was away, like I said, for a month and
Mm-hmm.
didn't watch the news. And of course, I'm back and I had it on, not as much yet since pre vacation, but, and it wasn't even a vacation, I was working away. But I have to say, not having that constant news come into, whether it's local or global news, there's so much going on, and you want to be aware, but you can let it really affect your mental stability. And so I think that now more than ever, we're going into the holidays. For a lot of people, the
Mm-hmm.
holidays can be triggering for people and can set people off, whether it's with family or maybe you've lost somebody and
Oh.
you are reflecting on that. So the holidays aren't the most joyous time of year. A lot of people, finances come into play and the stress that comes in with that. And so I think there's a lot of reasons why, there's deep set mental health, but I'm really glad that we're all aware and people talk about mental health much more than when I was younger, because I think there's much more resources out there. Even if you just are talking with your friends about this, or things like listening to podcasts that are talking about it, you're at least putting it out there and consuming hopefully some positive tools that you can implement into your life. And like I said before, I mean, for me, it comes down to a lot of planning and keeping somewhat of a schedule to keep my mental health in order. And like you were saying, being able, things arise that you cannot control. And
Mm-hmm.
so we edit a lot on our shows that we do. I often think of life as an edit. As long as I plan, I'm flexible enough to be able to edit. So, you know, I get it. Life changes and you have to be flexible to be able to edit your life. How about you? And
That is so illuminating. I've never thought of it like that before. And I think I'm going to start thinking of my life as one big edit, because you can
you're
all
the star in your own movie, Cody.
hello. I have a very main character syndrome. I don't know if we're people know that by now, but I definitely do. So I totally get that, and I'm going to start implementing that. So that's great advice. But I think that in this day and age, like you were saying, being more aware of your mental health is something that we need to take into account. And I think that I feel like I have been in a depressive mood for the past, I don't know, 3, 4 months, something like that.
Mhm.
And I, like you said, I'm relying on my friends, I'm relying on things that I can control, making sure that I am in control of those things. I am using this platform as an outlet. I'm using my music as an outlet. So I think all of those things combined, in addition to me looking for a mental health professional, is something that I am taking into consideration in order to combat my depressive state, because it can be really tough out there, hard
Yeah.
out there by yourself. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
I think there's going to be some really good tools in our conversation that people
I
can
believe
take
so.
away. And yeah, maybe it would be a good time to visit with our guest,
I love
Alicia
to.
Kiss.
Alicia Kiss Keys. Yes, let's start. All right, so we are back, and we mentioned we are discussing mental health and the effects of mental health as we age and in the LGBTQ plus community. That being said, I'd like to welcome our special guest for this episode, my friend and a mental health counselor, Miss Alicia Kiss. And before we get started, Alicia, you wanted to contextualize the conversation for our listeners before we get into chatting.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate, having you inviting me on this podcast. I am not a licensed mental health counselor as of yet. I graduated with my master's in mental health counseling. Anything that is said on this podcast is just purely some of it is factual and some of it is just I don't want it to be considered advice from a therapist. If anybody is suffering from mental health issues, mental illness, I highly suggest that you seek out a professional at this time. There are so many resources, Psychology Today. If you're in dire need of help, I would recommend going to a hospital. So just use this podcast as entertainment.
Always good with a disclaimer. I like that to start us off.
And kind of a guideline.
And
really.
a guideline,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. But if you're going through anything, please go out and seek help. Please go to a therapist, see a social worker. There are so many resources out there available to us. So we want you to be healthy.
And with that, let's kind of dive in a little bit on what we had planned here. You know, when you talk about mental health, I kind of wanted to know, is there a spectrum or a scale on how to measure quote unquote good mental health as opposed to maybe somebody that needs therapy in general?
Absolutely. So if you are experiencing any sort of discomfort, I guess think of it in terms of a physical illness. So if somebody has a cold, we're so used to, maybe a stuffy nose, having a cough, and you know what to do. You go to CVS pharmacy, you pick up some Theraflu or whatever over the counter, and you'll be better in a couple of days.
Right.
Versus, there's something really going on in my body and I don't know what it is. I might need to see a specialist at this point. And then you wait and you wait and you wait for that appointment, and it comes and it still doesn't feel right. You're waiting 1 to 3 months to see a specialist and there's still something wrong. So if you have that feeling of discomfort and it's about length, if it's been going on for a really long time, you're feeling all of these symptoms and you're like, I need help. If your brain is like, I need help, then that's the point where you might need to go out and say, okay, I think this is where I need to seek out a therapist or professional help.
It's good to listen to your instincts on what they're actually telling you. And often we have the own answers, at least to seek help, which is really good. The show's called Of a Certain Age.
Yes.
And I'm just curious because Kodi and I talk a lot about it. As we were talking in our meeting, are you seeing different age groups seeking therapy? It seems like the younger millennials, Gen Zs are all more inclined to seek mental health. But what about our older populations? And by older, I mean, 40s, 50s, at any age.
No, absolutely. I think as the younger generations kind of put it out there that, hey, therapy is really helpful. I think a lot of the older generation, unfortunately, they're, hey, I have to tough it out. I grew up like this and I was able to deal with it. And we hear, oh, these kids are so sensitive.
Right.
They'll deal with it. I mean, my mom used to do this to me and my dad used to do this to me. And, I came out okay. But meanwhile, I mean, a lot of the older generation, they don't really know how to cope with their emotions.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes out as anger and they're irritated all the time, and they're sad, but they're like, I'm sad and I've been feeling this way for a long time, but that sadness might actually be depression, or my heart is palpitating, every day. That's normal.
Yeah.
But it's actually anxiety, and it's hard for the older generation to understand that because they've been dealing with this for such a long time that it kind of comes across as normal. And I guess that's why the newer generation, whether it's millennials or Gen Z and whatever else comes after that, to spread the word and, for older people to adapt as well and say, oh, okay, you know what, there is a problem. The younger kids might be onto something,
Yeah.
maybe I do need to seek out help. But I think that's just an individual case where, somebody who is older needs to accept that maybe I do need to see a doctor. Maybe there is somebody out there that can help me.
Yeah.
Kodi, I know you have the next question, but I just want a quick follow up,
jump in.
only because
Get it.
is isolation, if because everything that you're just saying right now could also just feel like you're isolated, and maybe we all know it's harder to make friends as you get older, and is simply the feeling of isolation a time to seek some sort of mental health or therapy, in your opinion?
Absolutely. I mean, isolation is a big cause of a lot of mental disorders or mental illness in general. I mean, if you don't have any friends or family or any social support, things don't feel that great. I mean, I know that if I'm having a bad day, I'll call my friends and they're not going to solve my problems. They're not going to absolutely solve my depression or anxiety or whatever I'm going through. But does it help to have friends and support? Absolutely. So it does honestly make it a lot harder for you to deal with things when you are isolated. And I think that makes it hard. Well, it made it really hard during COVID, especially.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, everybody was isolated. We
Yeah.
were all inside. Some people had their family, some people had roommates, some people had friends, and great. But what about the people who didn't have that?
Yeah.
They're stuck inside, and depression. A lot of people came out of COVID with depression, anxiety, enhanced substance use, because what do you do when you're bored all day? You might drink, you might smoke marijuana, and do other illicit drugs. And I mean, what is there really to do besides just, I don't know, just sit there and, sit there and
Sit
put
there
on
and
Netflix,
stew.
right?
Yeah.
Or just stew in your feelings and nobody to talk to. I mean, they always say, social media is great and calling your friends is great, but physical human contact, and when you lack that, it's hard to honestly function, you know? Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And you bring up social media. How do you see social media affecting our everyday self-worth and our mental health throughout the inception of social media, basically?
I mean, I think we've all been there where we've seen, models and all of these companies that are hiring, people to model their clothing. I mean, like, for example, the big one is Shein and Fashion Nova nowadays, the fast fashion, where, Fashion Nova has a bunch of curvy models who are very voluptuous in different areas, big butts, big boobs, big lips,
All about the boobs and the butt.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it goes down to the smallest things where, I have pores. My hair is not thick enough. I have to wear glasses, or I have acne. And you see all of these people, and I mean, obviously social media isn't reality, but for many people it is reality, because I'm sure if we all looked at our screen time right now, it's 24 hours a day. I mean, I know my screen time is about 7 or 8 hours a day, on average. I mean, we're spending most of our time watching social media. At some point, it kind of becomes our reality, where all of these people with the big butts, the big boobs, the big lips, the muscles, everything is just, why am I not like that? And it really does affect so many people of all ages, the young kids, the teenagers, the young adults, the adults. And you kind of wonder, where am I in my life? Why don't I look like that? Why am I not as successful as all of these people? Why am I not making as much money as these people? And it really does diminish your self-worth and self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking, Kodi, and social media. Facebook has this thing where it reminds you 10 years ago on what you looked like in this period. And then there's challenges out there, the 10-year challenge, the 5-year challenge. And it's nothing but looking at yourself and comparing yourself at a different time when maybe you looked younger.
More snatched.
Yeah, and we do still live in a youthful society.
Yeah.
And so that can have an impact as we age, especially like you say, if we're comparing ourselves to other people.
I mean, ageism is huge.
Yeah.
I don't know about, outside of the United States, but, ageism is a really big thing across the spectrum. I mean, you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not a teenager anymore. And then you're in your 20s and, you're getting drunk every night. And then you get into your 30s and your 40s and then it's a midlife crisis. And then, but, it's not just yourself that's judging you. It's, we look at older people and like, oh, I don't want to be like that. Oh my God, these people are losing their minds, or, their bodies don't look great anymore. That guy has a dad bod. That woman has a mom bod. I mean,
hey, dad bods are in now.
Oh,
okay?
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with a dad bod. We're not body shaming here at all.
Yeah, fabulous.
Absolutely not. But it's really hard when ageism is it's rough. I mean, that's just one problem in the United States at the moment, right?
And that the society here, and especially in the United States, it's very prevalent here. So I totally get that. I was really curious what you saw, because we've been talking a little bit about social media, what you saw as a healthy amount of social media, because I personally use it for motivation, but I know that there is a fine line between motivation and kind of a degradation of my self-worth. So what do you see as the balance, I guess?
Absolutely. I think it depends on what you're using social media for. I mean, if somebody, for example, is depressed or has anxiety, if you're on there mindlessly scrolling and you're going through things that honestly, TikTok and Instagram, it all caters to you.
Yeah.
If you start looking at videos that are just going to make you feel worse, it's probably going to continue. That algorithm is just going to continue. So you're going to keep getting depressing videos. I remember being super anxious and I was just getting so many political videos of things going on in the world. And I was just like, holy crap, I need to stop.
Yeah.
Because at some point my heart was racing, I was sweating, and I was like, no, this is just not good. And I think at some point, people need to realize why. I think the big reason is, why am I using social media right now? I think it's great as a knowledge and entertainment basis. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing all the time. If I want to learn how to salsa, it's great. I'm gonna look up how to salsa, or you can learn so many things on social media, and I think it's great that we're all connected. But on some point, I mean, how is it making us feel? I think we need to take a step back and wonder, why am I on social media right now, and what is it doing for me at this moment? Am I using it to cope, or am I just bored? Or do I have any other things that I need to do? Am I procrastinating right now? I mean, there are so many.
I feel
Right. Right. I think procrastination's a big one.
Wow,
Right.
that's me all day. I hear that.
Absolutely.
Totally.
There's probably 100 things I need to get done, and I do one of those things, which is great. I'll look at that as progress, but social media really takes up so much of our time.
Do you have any tips or tricks on how to manage it? I know for me personally, I'll just share my, if I schedule my time, you and I were talking, Kodi, before you got here, what did you do? I said, well, I knew I had to get this workout in. Workout is really I call it my mental health release.
Working out is great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Endorphins. And I was like, how am I going to get it? Because I know after this, I'm not going to want to work out. I have this thing where as the day goes on, I'm not as effective for me personally to work out. So for me, it's scheduling the things that I have to get done and then finding that free time. Do you have any tips and tricks, or is scheduling a good option?
Sure. I mean, scheduling is always a great option. I always tell people, especially when they deal with maybe anxiety or some like OCD symptoms, maybe, make a list, make a list of things to do throughout your day. And if going on social media is something that really means a lot to you, hey, maybe between this time and this time I can do this. Or
like they do with the kids.
Exactly. I was just going to say, with kids, I mean, I know this isn't
no, screen time is a real thing.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Schedule yourself some screen time.
I mean, I know this isn't a kids podcast, but literally like what parents do and
Aren't
what
we all kids inside?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still act like a kid all the time.
Me too. I'm silly. So yeah.
But a lot of parents, or, if they go to therapy and they tell the kids, hey, okay, so why don't you, especially college students too, study for an hour, take a 15-minute break on social media, study for another hour, take another 15-minute break on social media. I mean, it's all about balance. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Balance is so hard, especially with work life and, finding leisure times where I can just have 10 minutes to do something and just feel like, okay, I functioned for the whole day.
Yeah.
When can I just take a break,
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I love that. So I kind of want to touch on something that you touched on a little bit
Sure.
earlier. And we were talking about social media and your heart. You said something about your heart racing. So a good indicator of whether your mental health is in jeopardy, there are actual physical tells. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah. I guess this is going to be, kind of vague just because I
Okay.
think it depends on, your diagnosis and what's going on.
Right.
When you go to therapy, usually if you're going for, let's say, for example, let's say you're going in for depression, your therapist might say, okay, what are your warning signs? What are your warning signs that might be triggering an episode right now? And that's for a lot of diagnoses. I mean, from depression to anxiety to OCD to ADHD to everything. So I think the biggest thing is, sitting down, and I mean, of course, I recommend going to a therapist.
Yes.
That's going to be my suggestion. But if you notice that you are having a rough time, what goes on in your mind? I mean, for me, if I'm experiencing some anxiety, I know I get sweaty and my leg will start tapping, or my heart will start racing, or I'll talk very quickly, or my mouth is really dry. So it's things like that, so that's just me personally. That's what happens to me personally. So it really depends on, it's everybody's similar in a way. I mean, of course, like diagnoses they all share commonalities, but I think the most important part is what are your triggers, noticing what your triggers are. And I think that across the board of from a young adult to an adult, I think we need to be more cognizant of what our triggers are and what bothers us throughout the day, so that it's easier for us to, I guess, manage our days and manage stress and manage. It doesn't even have to be a diagnosis. I mean, stress, it's as easy as stress, honestly.
The number one killer.
Stress is,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But good advice to really just, a therapist can obviously ask you these questions, but to really, once again, get in tune with yourself, sit
Absolutely.
with yourself and really ask yourself, what am I feeling? What's being triggered? I wanted to just tap a little bit into the LGBTQ plus community.
Sure.
And I guess, there's so much, we've seen bullying, we've seen so much in the past year of anti-LGBTQ laws. I think the last I saw, there's over 570 plus anti-bills that could cause anxiety for so many of the community. Transgender people are really feeling threatened all the time. Walking outside, just oftentimes places like I live in New York, and sometimes you can't even do that in major cities. So are you seeing more a need for LGBTQ and mental health, a need for our particular community as of recent years?
Absolutely. So it's actually like a statistic that if you belong to the LGBTQ community, you are 4 times more likely to have mental health issues or mental health illness.
Wow.
Which, I mean,
That's
for many
really
reasons,
sad.
I mean, you have discrimination, you have families that won't accept you.
Coming out late in life.
Coming out late, absolutely. There are so many different things that the LGBTQ community does go through. I know in adults, actually, in terms of the trans community, normally somebody who identifies as maybe cisgender, suicide rates are 4% in the United States. For trans community, you want to guess what the percent is?
Gosh,
I don't
don't
want
yeah,
to.
I don't know.
It was upwards of almost 50% as of
Wow.
last year.
Gosh.
It's awful. It's really sad, of course. It's really rough. I mean, it's hard to kind of, if I've had, somebody in the LGBTQ community come to me and say, how do I survive on the streets? I mean, that's not advice that I wouldn't know what to say, honestly.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's not just the LGBTQ community that feels unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to undermine anybody, but it's just, I don't know what I would say. I guess my biggest thing is having people around you, having a safe community around you, people that, would stand up for you if something did happen in the streets. It's very, very scary.
Right.
I mean, that would go into more of like, I guess, a social work aspect of like maybe relocating, to a place. I mean, I feel for the people that are, in Florida right now, in Texas. I mean, it's rough. It's really, really rough, but if, somebody in the LGBTQ community goes to therapy, I mean, what we do focus on is, acceptance. We have to focus on, of course, creating a safe place for them, using correct pronouns.
Right.
There are so many things that, it has to do with more, I guess, identity in terms of going to therapy. I wish I had the best advice for somebody in the LGBTQ community to say, hey, it's going to be okay. You walk out in Brooklyn and everybody's going to be accepting of you and we're all going to give you hugs and kisses. And it's just, unfortunately, it's not like that. Even in New York, it's not like that.
Yeah. It's getting wild out there. So yeah, I feel that. I just want to switch gears just a little bit, but we did kind of talk about this. So self-worth, we're basically talking about a lot about self-worth in this. So I would like to know what you feel is the correlation between self-worth and mental health. How does your mental health directly reflect on your self-worth?
Self-worth is a big one. I mean, it really depends. I mean, we were talking before about social media, and of course, that's honestly a whole podcast in itself, just talking about the effects of social media. It's still independent, and maybe like you don't have a great family life. I mean, maybe it can go down to, your family not treating you well, or, it started off where you were bullied at a young age and bullied into an adult age. I mean, it really depends on, I guess, your surroundings. And at that point, I guess it's up to you on a certain level. I hate to say it that way, but it is up to you to be responsible about the people that you have around you. And of course, that's a learning experience. I'm sure we've all grown up with really crappy friends at some point, and like the bad crowd and who have made us feel really crappy about ourselves, and then as we get older, we hopefully find a crowd that makes us feel more at home and more safe. And those create, I guess, better thoughts in terms of our self-worth and self-esteem. So it does have to do, honestly, a lot with where we are in our life and who we surround ourselves with.
Yeah. You know what? I hear you keep coming back to friends and a support system. How important is that to your self-worth and your mental health overall?
Oh, so important. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine, there are so many people who are in abusive relationships and narcissistic relationships where the other person gaslights them and love bombs them, and then they're trapped. And then at some point...
hold on one second. What's a love bomb? I don't know. That sounds like something good that I want to do.
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, not at all. You don't want a love bomb. No,
wow.
no. These are all like narcissistic tendencies that somebody who is narcissistic will do to you. So love bombing might be like you get into an argument with somebody and then they say, no, like, I love you. Like, I would do anything for you.
Wow.
And it's,
play
it's
with
like,
your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll treat you like shit, but I know that you're kind of wavering and, you might leave me. So I'm going to say, oh no, anything to get you back. Oh. And then it's like a cycle. And then I'm going to treat you like shit again. But then I'm going to say, no, I never meant that, Yeah. So, I mean, imagine being around somebody like that constantly.
Yeah. Keyword bomb, Kodi.
Yeah, bomb. Love is great, but bomb is not.
Yeah,
exactly.
blowing it up. Right.
Exactly. So imagine being around that 24/7 and you never get a break from that, and then you finally hopefully break through from that, right? And then, I mean, your self-esteem is honestly pretty shit at that point. I mean, it's something that you're used to, and you kind of go into other relationships probably apologizing 50 times a day because you're trying to please that other person. And if you're in a healthy relationship, that person might be like, whoa, like, I didn't mean it like this. And you're like, oh, really? Like, I thought you were trying to do this. And, it's just very confusing. And then that's where the healing of that trauma begins.
Yeah. Real quick, I just wanted to tap into, we talked about the pandemic and how it affected so many of us, but people are working in different ways these days post-pandemic, where a lot of us are really got comfortable working from home. I mean, I always did, but a lot of companies are doing sort of half the time in the office, the other time at home. definitely a lot of younger people prefer working from home. What are you seeing for our mental health on the way we like to work and where it's transitioning? Because there's these huge buildings in certain cities that are empty now, and it's the whole landscape is changing post-pandemic.
Right. So I guess that's also situational. I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask. I
Right.
personally love working from home. It's great. I don't have to go anywhere. And
Yeah.
I'm also more introverted. So it's great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, weird being a therapist and an introvert, but, it works,
Hey.
whatever. But then, you talk about, I don't know, the 40-year-old mother who has 5 kids at home and she has no place to bring her kids. And it's just so much easier to work at home and manage her kids,
Yeah.
But then it's also, hey, there's the person that wants to go to work, but they want to work, but they have to work from home. But, maybe their source of mental health is getting out, getting on a train, getting on a bus, interacting with people, being around people. I mean, some people are extroverts. I can't imagine what that's like.
I know.
Who
I
are
can't
these
imagine.
people?
But those people that go to a party,
No, right,
they
yeah.
go to a party and they're like, woo, like this is great. Oh my God, I love the attention. I love the people. I love this. This feels great. And
Right.
then, I'm in the corner like, leave me alone. But like, that's where people get their energy. I mean,
Yeah.
it really depends on where you get your energy and how productive you feel. I know, but honestly, I feel like it's a great thing though, because if you think about New York City's, I guess, work-life balance, it's rough,
Right.
especially when I live in Long Island, so it's a little different because everybody drives everywhere, but you're still in traffic, so
Yeah.
it sucks. But let's say you work a 9 to 5 and you work in the city, you got to leave your house at 7 a.m. and then what? You don't get home until
no.
8 p.m. and then where's the
Oh,
day?
no.
But exactly, where does it go?
Yeah.
So then you're eating dinner really late. And then you have to be in bed really early just to be up. Like, where's the quality of life at
Yeah,
that point?
I hear ya.
So I think, it is honestly situational. Some people love to work. It's their life. And I'm not here to judge people who that's their purpose. They
Right.
love it. But for people like me who genuinely like to relax and, have some downtime, I do think that working from home feels easier, mental health wise. I
Yeah.
guess it just depends on who you are.
Yeah. So what would you say to those people that are extroverted, not us? What are some like coping mechanisms for them that they can actually get their extroversion out? And I don't think that's a word, but we're going to go with it, and still work from home basically.
Sure. So I guess it depends on what their idea of work life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I always recommend, you take some time, especially, okay, you have an hour break, use that
Right.
hour break wisely,
Oh, wow.
don't scroll through social media if that's just gonna, be mindless. I mean, I remember somebody asking, well, if you're scrolling through social media, could you tell me the last 3 videos that you watched? No.
Right.
Normally, no.
In and
I don't
out,
remember. It's in and out. It's temporary good feelings,
Yeah.
and it's you don't remember anything,
fleeting.
so do
Yeah.
something productive. I mean, even if
Take a
that's
walk.
take a walk. Taking a walk is great.
It's one of my
mean,
favorites.
I
Yeah.
love taking walks.
Me
Walks are
too.
great. Anything where you're in, in the winter it's harder, but even standing outside for a little bit, even getting 5 minutes of fresh air, doing some breathing exercises, meditating is great. Eating a healthy meal, having some fruits and vegetables with your meal, just a little bit whole grains. I mean, I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, just
Right.
but those are just, proven to have a healthier brain and a healthier, outlook towards life. I mean, I definitely feel better when I have a strawberry versus a McDonald's meal, you know?
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
No, McDonald's is great.
Oh no.
right.
So we've been talking a lot about mental health, and it's been wonderful. This is a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we had it. But I kind of want to leave things on a lighter, more positive
Absolutely.
note. And so I want to ask everybody on the panel here, what do you think? What do you see as the key to happiness? Would you like to go first, Alicia, since you're our guest?
Sure. So something I think about is just having a healthy balance in life, honestly, work, friends, family, being able to balance everything food wise, being able to feel satisfied. I think I had seen something recently where it was like, we're on this planet to experience, not
Yes.
to put things out, not to work. And I really like that, having that idea of let's experience life as it is and being in the present moment, not worrying about the
Yes.
past, not worrying about the future. Who am I in this moment and what can I do better? I think that's just honestly the best way to, I personally look at life. It's
Beautiful.
hard, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Steve, would you like to go next or you want me to go next?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, what's been working in the last couple years during the pandemic is setting intention setting per day. And I started with meditation in the morning, setting whatever it was. A lot of it is like what you said, Alicia, being in the moment. I set that intention a lot. I also set to connect with those I come in contact with.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And those are a couple of the more popular ones. It really does work for me. And then the other things that have been working for me too is scheduling my day so that I feel productive. So for me, I'm not super early morning person,
Me either.
but whatever time I do get up, I make a list and a schedule of the things that I want to get done so that I personally feel accomplished on at least what I wanted to get done on that particular day. So those are just a couple of mine.
That's beautiful. I love that. So for me personally, and I do a lot of thinking in the shower. So last night I was in the shower thinking about this, and I said to myself, to me, happiness is living authentically and basically without having the thoughts and expectations of other people in society, not letting that affect how I live and how I am out there in the world. So I think that that is my key to happiness.
I love that. I thought of one more if I could add.
Go,
Yeah,
go.
please.
The power of forgiveness for yourself. So if you
Absolutely.
get off of your track, your horse, whatever it is, be willing to forgive yourself and know that tomorrow's a new day, the next hour is a new hour, and you can always get back on track for whatever that is for you.
Beautiful.
Give yourself room to make mistakes. That's
Yeah.
so important. I mean, P is for progress, not perfection.
Oh, I love
Oh,
that.
wow.
That's a good note to end on.
That is. So thank you for so much for
Thank
joining
you guys for
us
having me.
today.
I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Lovely. Wow, Kodi. Some really good points and tips I think Alicia gave us that
So good.
I took a lot of notes on this because things like screen time, how much we spend on our phone, social media, she just gave us some really talking about trigger points throughout the day, how to manage your day, little things. And just I love the whole part about self-awareness that
Mm.
even if you aren't seeking out a therapist right now for whatever reason, or you don't even think you need to, but just having that self-awareness and asking some of the questions that Alicia brought up
Hmm.
can put you having that mental conversation. And I loved what you had said about you do a lot of your thinking in the shower.
Oh yes, and
I do too,
and
actually.
I know, and I do a lot of singing in the shower too. So it's thinking and singing. That's the two thing. The water really helps me for some odd reason. I think it's because I'm a Cancer. Um,
There you go. Yeah, probably.
but yeah, so that conversation was so amazing. I learned so much, and I agree with you 100%. Alicia brought so many good tips and tricks to help maintain our mental health. And in addition to getting a mental health professional in on when you feel like you are in a depressive state, I think that relying on your friends. And I learned something new actually about love bombing. Do you believe that
Yes,
love bombing is a thing? And
I
I
know.
it's
Not a good
so
thing, but
good.
yeah, right.
Not a good thing, but
Exactly. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening and for supporting our new podcast of a certain age. You know, you can follow the show on Instagram of a certain age pod, POD, of a certain age pod. And also consider giving us a good review if you can on Apple iTunes podcasts. It will only help spread the word if you like what you're hearing to a larger audience. And as we are brand new with this show, we want to reach as many people in the community as possible. So the show again, Of a Certain Age Pod on Instagram. We are back with a new episode next week, and it's a good one.
And don't forget to live
Live out
out
loud.
loud.
Of a certain